One of the most popular additions in the last 15 to 20 years in the Supercars Championship. Here's my way of improving it. So, Supercars has had some good ideas and also some very terrible ideas in the last 10 to 15 years, but one of the best ones I think they have come up with is the wildcard system. It's a program where you can enter the odd race or two. First it was in the endurance races, and then later on in 2017 they changed it up a bit. Firstly, if you like this video and you want to see more Supercars content from me, give a like and a subscribe. The support would be very much appreciated. And if you want just weekly news or even daily news updates, follow me on TikTok as well. So, the wildcard system has actually been around since 2009. Now, from probably 2005 onwards, the only people that could enter races were full-time entries. You couldn't do the one-off entry here and there, and it slowly hurt the grid size, especially at Bathurst, where at 2008 they had their lowest entry numbers ever, with 29 cars, and even then that was whittled down to 27 through practice accidents. So this wildcard system was implemented for the Fujitsu series, now the Dunlop series, where they could enter the endurance races, which at the time was Phillip Island and Bathurst, and 3 teams did this. And some notable things have happened because of this wildcard system. In 2011, a very young Cameron Waters made his debut alongside Grant Denyer in the Shannon's car. In 2013, Triple Eight did a wild card with Matthias Ekstrom and Andy Prio, some European touring car guys, and that car with Ludo Lacroix behind it got a top 10. In 2014, the next year, Super Black Racing had a wild card with Andre Heimgartner and Ant Pedersen both making their debut, and that would snowball into Andre Heimgartner and Super Black being on the grid full time for 2015. And in 2015, Renee Gracie and Simona Di Silvestro led an all-women's driver lineup for the first time since 1998 for both Tickford and then for Kelly Racing. But in 2017, they would change this. They would open up the wildcard formula to enter upwards of 2 sprint rounds at either Perth, Winton, Darwin and Ipswich in 2017, along with Bathurst, although ironically, there wouldn't be any entries for Bathurst. Winton and Ipswich would have Macaulay Jones, Shay Davies and James Golding entering the races. Shay Davies being a Matt White Motorsport Nissan Altima, so that would be a second team entering Nissans. Macaulay Jones obviously for Brad Jones Racing, and James Golding in a third Gary Rogers car. Matt White wouldn't just stop there, they would also enter Jack LeBrock into wildcards. Firstly at Darwin and then at Ipswich. And you thought Ipswich was busy then. Well, there would be one more notable entry, and probably the most important on the grid. Todd Hazelwood was the Super 2 points leader at the time for Matt Stone Racing, and both he and the team would be doing a wildcard at Queensland Raceway, and this would be the stepping stone to what would then eventually be a full-time 2018 Supercars seat for both team and driver. And since then there has been some notable wildcard starts. You have the Walkinshaw Andretti United International car of Alexander Rossi and James Hinchcliffe, and that same year the Kostecki cousins Jake and Brody would be doing a wildcard for the family run team. And I think probably the most famous wildcard appearance was Zach Best at the Bend in 2022, when he would get pole position in one of the races, which was an amazing achievement. But gone are the days where 5 teams would enter wildcards. It takes a lot of money to organise these, and for whatever reason Supercars keep pulling the teams back from doing wildcards. Up until last year, you could only do 1 sprint round and the 2 enduros. That was it. But don't worry, they've increased it this year. You can now do 2 sprint rounds and 2 enduros. But those 2 sprint rounds have to be for 2 different drivers. So for example, this year, Tickford are doing a wild card for the sprint rounds and the enduros. And Lockie Dalton, who is one of the drivers of the wild card, will be doing it at Perth. and Rylan Gray, the other driver, will be at Darwin, and then they'll combine together for the Enduros. Yes, these changes are good, they're promising changes, but if I was head dictator of the Supercars Championship, I would go even further, and I would implement a thing that NASCAR is doing. Now I know, ooh, scary, more NASCAR shit in my Supercars Championship, but this is for a good reason. What they do with their chartered teams, you've got the 36 chartered teams, but then they've got what they call open cars. Now open cars can enter whatever races they want to. They can enter from the Daytona 500 to, I don't know, the full Mansville race. But they get less prize money and they aren't guaranteed a qualifying spot. That's it. They can enter any races they want to, but as long as they just don't get the purse money or as much of the purse money, and if there are more than 40 cars, they can get bumped out of the race. And I think Supercars should do what's sort of a modified version of this. I would keep the run whatever fucking races you want to, but I would just have them not earn the charter money. So all the teams get a set amount of money for the year. I would have the open cars, as I'd call them now, not wild cards. Or you can still keep the wildcard name, I guess. I'd have the wildcard cars just not earn that money. And maybe, let's say, if I'm trying to think of the max capacity of the grid, over 30 cars come to a race. Maybe for whoever's got the least amount of owners points is not eligible for the race, and maybe they get an entry into the next race or something like that. And I'd also open it so they can enter whatever fucking races they want to. Then you could have, I mean, that's probably stopped the Novocastrian Motorsport guys from entering Newcastle when they raced there. Would have been cool to see a Newcastle-based team entering the Newcastle race, but no. And then you could get like a one-off entry in New Zealand for a New Zealand-based team. If you remember in the early 2000s, from 2003 to I think he did it in 2005. I know he did it in 04. From 2003 to I think 2005, Mark Porter would enter, well, would lease a rig and do a one-off entry in New Zealand. So you could get like International Motorsport or the Giltrap team or someone like that doing a one-off entry for one of their drivers. Plus, if they lift the restriction on the number of rounds they do, that could open up the likes of Matt and Armin Charter, who are looking to, they bought the Sandown 500 winner of 2023. They're going to want to do more than just a sprint round and the two Enduros. They could do like half the schedule maybe, and maybe Tickford could have like 3 rounds for Dalton and 2 rounds for Rylan Gray, maybe. And I'm sure if it was possible, Tickford, or Triple Eight, sorry, would just have Zach Bates in more than just one round. I'm sure they would put him in as many rounds as possibly can. And if they can enter however many races they want to, just not get the prize money, that could be the key to getting Peter Adderton on the grid. Now he's talked about, and I'm not sure if he's wanted to or not, he's been talking about wanting to get on the grid for the longest time. Now, he could enter a full-time grid, buy the ex-888 Camaros, I'm sure there'll be a few on the market this time next year, and enter the full season, just not get the however much money they get for entering a charter. And you get Mobile X racing on the grid. And that is my opinion and idea on how to improve the wildcard system. It's a great program that you can do with so much potential, and it's good. It's better than it was a few years ago, definitely, but it can be so much better, I think. Now, if you have your own opinions on the wildcard system, leave them in the comment down below. I'd like to hear how you guys would improve the wildcard system. And while you're down there, give a like and a subscribe. The support will be very much appreciated. Weekly content will be coming to this channel this year, definitely, unlike last year. And also, our weekly roundup of the news will be uploaded every Friday.